How's it going, guys? Thank you for joining us again to the second episode of the Pound for Pound Combat Sports Podcast. I'm here with my co-host Brandon. How you doing today, Brandon?
Good, good, good. How's it going?
Hey, not bad. Unfortunately, our third co-host was unable to join us today again, but shout out to Mikey. Um, so today we're going to be covering a lot of miscellaneous things, but we are going to be covering some of the fights that occurred this past weekend of fighting. Want to get right into it?
Yeah, let's go.
Alrighty, so just to start off, we're gonna start off with some boxing. Did you watch any of the zone fights at all?
I didn't get a chance to see those. I was actually busy with a lot of family, but I did tune into some of the bare knuckle fights. I know we're going to talk about those in a bit, but let's cover these fights first.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I didn't even know about the zone fights. When I was just going through my feed that I go through on a daily basis, I saw that Virgil Ortiz, prospect that's coming up in the 154 division in boxing, had a fight against Delorme, ex-champion. Um, Fought a lot of top fighters in the past. And I just wanted to cover this one really quick because, like I said, Virgil Ortiz, he's a hot prospect. So he's known for being a super strong power puncher. He fights out of the Robert Garcia team in California, and it was a pretty quick fight. You said you didn't get to watch it, but he knocked out Delorme in the first round with a shot to the liver.
Oh, wow. Oh,
Um,
wait, I think I did see that highlight actually. Let me see if I can find it.
yeah. All right, yeah, let's bring it up. They were like in close range, and Delorme was had a high guard, I'm pretty sure, and Virgil Ortiz snuck it behind the elbow. It didn't look that hard, but Delorme he fell immediately. And Delorme is known to be kind of like the gatekeeper right now at this point of his career for all the top prospects that are trying to get to that advance to the next level. They kind of have to go through him. He's like a test for them. And it looks like Virgil, who just moved up from 147 due to his metabolic health issues, um, looks way stronger at 154, and I'm excited to see him fight the 154 fighters. They kind of compare him to Zoo. They have a similar come forward style, pressure pressure fighter style with power. Would you like to see that fight, Ortiz versus Sue, in the future? I know Tim Sue just lost against Fundora, but what do you think about that fight?
Yeah, I think that'd be a good fight. I've been seeing a lot of behind Tim Zhu, but again, I haven't seen too many of his fights. Um, I mean, I'm looking at his record, and he fought Tony Harrison, beat him, who's been a pretty big name. He fought one of the Charlo brothers. Um, he beat Fundora. Oh no, it looks like he lost to Fundora, but Fundora is also a really good boxer too. Oh, he lost by split decision, I think it looks like. So I mean,
Yeah,
he's definitely a good boxer if he has some of these names on his record already.
yeah, and let's not forget that Tony Harrison beat Charlo. They fought twice, and Tony outboxed him in the first match, I believe so.
Do you want to move on to the bare knuckle now?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, let's get to it.
All right, so I did get to tune into some of these fights because they're a little bit later at night. I think the first fight I got tuned into was the Angulo versus Riggs fight, and I don't really watch a whole lot of bare knuckle, but I was able to see some of this, and I saw Angulo walking out. I was like, oh my gosh, no way! And I didn't know what to expect because I don't know how old he is, but I know he is kind of on the older side. But I think in bare knuckle there is a lot of older fighters, so it probably didn't play too much of a factor, especially when you have a professional boxing background. I think you mentioned he did fight
Right, yeah.
Canelo,
Yeah, for
and
for those of you who don't know, Angulo, he fought Canelo way back in the day when Canelo was coming up, still young. And I'm pretty sure he did he go the full distance with Canelo? Can you look that up real quick?
yeah, I can look that up real quick.
Is because Angulo, he's known to be also like a volume pressure fighter, so he doesn't have like devastating knockout power, but I mean, his nickname is the dog. Is a dog that comes forward and takes punishment to dish it out. Um, I'm pretty sure he got knocked out versus Canelo, but I'm not sure. Let me know when you find out.
Find it. Oh, he fought him in 2014. Yeah, I guess Canelo did get the knockout. It looks like it was in the ninth round or eighth or ninth round. He got the knockout.
Okay, so that's Canelo punching him with like 12, or is it 10 or 12-ounce gloves? Well, it doesn't matter, but it has padding. So Canelo is to be a power puncher too. So we know that Angulo has a pretty decent chin. But over here, with the bare knuckle rules, the guy was like grabbing his hair from behind his head, kind of like in a clinch style, and
Yeah,
just going at it.
yeah. I
What do
mean,
you think about those rules?
I was watching. I couldn't figure out whether that was legal or not to grab the hair. I heard some of the commentators mentioning it, but I mean, he held his hair for like I think a minute straight, and the ref never told him to stop, or I couldn't hear him, but he never stopped the fight to tell him to stop grabbing the hair. But he was just holding on to that thing, and it looked like Angulo didn't know what to do because he couldn't separate. Obviously, in boxing, you're not allowed
Right.
to grab behind the head and punch, but and I know in bare knuckle you're allowed to clinch and punch, and like you're actually allowed to
Yeah,
grab behind the head and while you're punching them. But I don't know about the hair part. That part kind of, it honestly kind of made me a little bit angry. I was like, what? Like that looks kind of like cheating, but I mean it is what it
right.
is. Like I guess bare knuckle is a little bit more. I don't know how you say it, more like grimy and like more like
A little more wild.
yeah, a little bit more wild. And it made
Yeah.
it made for a fun fight. So I guess at the end of the day, it made it more exciting, maybe. But then
Oh yeah, dude.
it was a really satisfying end to the fight. I'm gonna spoil it. I'm gonna spoil these fights if you haven't watched them. But Angulo actually, so the commentators were like, "Oh my gosh, the referee could stop this fight because Angulo is getting hit just repeatedly nonstop for a minute straight." And then out of nowhere, I mean, it even looked like Angulo was slowing down and like was a little bit wobbly, but then out of nowhere, he just ends up throwing like I think three punches in a row, and then it looked like Riggs was like really like wobbly, and then one punch finished him off completely. It was a pretty satisfying finish to that fight.
Yeah, with that right hand. I mean,
Mm.
yeah, dude, he was taking a lot of punishment, but like we said, he has a granite chin, and then his boxing experience came out. He didn't shy away, and he put him out with that corkscrew right hand. You want to move on to another bare knuckle fight? Which ones did you
Yeah,
watch?
I watched the last four. So I watched Rothwell versus Duffy. That we'll go over that one quick. I mean, it was pretty quick. Rothwell and Duffy just came out swinging. Rothwell's undefeated in BKFC. He had a very extensive MMA background. I think Duffy did as well, but it looked like Duffy hurt his shoulder early. Like after he got knocked down once, and then after the second knockdown, he literally just shook his hand, was like waving it off to the ref, like I'm done. Like, and apparently he hurt his shoulder or something, but who
Mm,
know? You never know, but it looked like he kind of just quit. But obviously, I'm not him, so I don't know what happened. But you could see
yeah.
Rothwell was really pissed. Like he's like, dude, I wanted to knock him out, but
Yeah, I got one thing to say about that one. Like when Rothwell, the commentators were saying that he was hitting him with like a right hook or something. I didn't see that connect, bro. That went behind his head. So maybe something did happen to the other guy, Duffy, who I'm not familiar with at all. Like I didn't even know that he was an MMA fighter.
yeah, yeah, I'm not too familiar with him either. I think I heard the commentator said he fought in the UFC, so
Really?
yeah.
Now, yeah, those punches that put the guy down, I didn't even see those connect, bro. So
I
I don't
saw him.
know.
I saw him
Maybe I was
land. I know one good punch he landed knocked him down. I think it might have been like an uppercut or something. But the second time he went down, I can't remember. It didn't look like he got hit very clean or anything. It just looked like he went down and then he just was like, no, I don't know if he fell on his arm or something. But yeah.
Yeah, he shook his head no, which like
And
indicative of quitting.
then this next fight,
But
oh
yeah.
my god, this Terrell versus Hunt. This was supposed to be like highly anticipated because this Hunt guy, he was like a two division champion and he's going for his third belt, which is pretty
Oh, is that
crazy.
so?
Yeah, because he went all the way up to heavyweight, and he could tell you he was quite a bit smaller. That was another disappointing ending as well. except this time,
Actually,
except this time you could obviously see Hunt could not fight. Did you see what happened to him?
no, dude. Actually, I didn't see this one, but
Oh my
I did
god,
see the other ones. Yeah. What happened in this one?
dude, he actually fell, and when he fell, so he got dropped one time, and then the second,
Mm.
I think he got dropped either once or twice, but the last time he went down, it was the second time he went down. No, 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 it was the first time. Yeah, he went down the first time, and he lands on. It was a clean punch, and he tries to brace his fall with his arms, and some weird thing happened. I think he was like his equilibrium was off, but he went to go brace his fall, and then his arm just shoots behind his back, and then his elbow completely dislocates, and you can see the elbow's sticking out. Like this wasn't like the Duffy
Oh
fight where,
shit!
yeah, he actually couldn't fight. It was really bad. It was a
And
complete dislocation. It was pretty gross, honestly.
so he failed his goal at becoming a three-time or a three-division champion at
Yeah,
BKFC, essentially.
yeah.
Yeah.
It was pretty disappointing because like I was really looking forward to seeing how he would respond after getting knocked down, but obviously we never got to see that because when he got knocked down, it was a clean punch and he could tell he was hurt, but then he
Mhm.
was quickly recovered because his arm got dislocated, but then he immediately was like, he's like fully conscious and aware, and he like immediately looks to his elbow and he's like, "Yo," but like he wasn't like
Dang.
completely wobbled or anything. It was like a flash
Right,
knockdown,
right.
but yeah, I was like, oh man, really wanted to see what he would do afterwards because he said in the post fight, he's like, I wanted to bait Terrell in and then take my time at the start, and then once I get the distance and everything, that's when I was gonna start to unload. But we never got to see that, so
I know he's a savage though because before BKFC started bringing on all like the higher profile ex MMA, ex boxer names, like he was pretty much one of the big stars there. But yeah, we definitely maybe there'll be a rematch or something like that in the future for him.
yeah, for sure. I mean, he looks pretty exciting the way he was fighting. It kind of reminded me of Mike Tyson being like the smaller fighter and like trying to use his explosiveness, but we didn't get to see too much
Right.
of that in this fight because it was so short. But yeah, we'll move on to the next one, which was the main event. and
Oh
I
yeah, yeah,
think,
Mike Perry. Mike,
yeah, I was gonna say, I watched four fights and I think all of them finished in the first round. So,
yeah, they were
I
quick, bro.
yeah, it was interesting. It was the first time I actually like, maybe like the second time I actually watched BKFC, but oh my god, I was surprised. Like, yeah,
Perry's
you
like
go.
a ex UFC fighter, right? He never reached that like world class, or maybe he was up there, but he never reached he never became a UFC champion, but he did contend at a high level. And the other guy, Alves, he's like an old school UFC fighter too, known for his Muay Thai, and like they call him the Pit Bull because he was relentless. Um, but yeah, dude, I didn't know Alves was that big. He used to fight in like the lower weight classes, like 155 back in the day, no?
I think you might be right, but I did notice like a lot of these guys look like they're a little bit older, but they look in really good shape. So it made me
Bro,
wonder what
that
kind of
saucy.
testing, yeah, what kind of testing are they doing? Because I mean, you had
Bro,
even
that
Ben Rothwell, like he looked in incredible shape, and he's pretty old. So
yeah, he had that beer gut in the UFC, but all of a sudden he has like a six pack or some
I
shit.
know, yeah, I was like, whoa, 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 what's going on here?
I know. Hey, it makes it more exciting though, you
It
know?
does for sure. What
So what do you think of the fight of the actual fight? It was kind of quick too, like you said, the Mike Perry
yeah.
versus Alves.
Yeah, I mean, he hits him with one clean shot, and Alves just couldn't. He was just really struggling to get up, and he barely got up. And I think the ref just was like, I think the ref realized he probably could not fight. But I mean, props to Mike
Right,
Perry. Like,
well, yeah, the ref was checking on him. He told him to walk to the side and like he was stumbling hard. Like the ref was in the way, so it wasn't very clear. But like if you look at the feet, like he was tripping over his feet, bro. He was definitely
yeah,
hurt.
yeah, and you could tell the way he was getting up. Like he tried to get up to like the one knee, and he was like still, he's like really slow to get up. But I mean, he was able to make the count, and I don't know. I think with BKFC, you got to be careful because it's not like boxing or MMA where you have the gloves on. Like one punch could really do some damage.
Right. What do you think about that factor of not having any padding? Like, you think because they don't have a wrap that they can punch, or there's two schools of thought, right? That there's less padding, so that equals more power. But then there's the other school of thought that because you don't have an actual hand wrap, that you won't punch as hard because you don't want to break your hand. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think there's those factors all come into play. I think for sure they definitely can't throw as maybe as hard, or if they do, there's way more consequences. But I thought about it and I was like, I think it has something to do with the I think it's the dispersal. I think is the word like or how the force is
Yeah.
distributed. Because when you have padding covering your hand, that force from your hand to the person, there's a layer in between, so it has to go through the glove. So I think you punch with those two knuckles, your first two knuckles, but that force from those two knuckles gets dispersed through the entire glove before it hits the other opponent. But in bare knuckle, I think all of that force from those first two knuckles, it hits you. It's like kind of like throwing, it's kind of like dropping like a rock or like something small onto a piece of glass. All that force, you know what I mean? Like if you were to like step on a piece of glass, like a window, you wouldn't break it
Mhm.
necessarily. But if you drop like a really small object, it could crack the entire glass. You know what I'm talking about?
Absolutely, yeah. That's the in physics. That's like the surface
Yeah,
area force. So that's why
exactly,
when you see the glass breakers, it's like a super small point that breaks the glass. That you yeah you
exactly.
said it absolutely
Yeah, so I
right.
think that's what's causing these quick knockouts is I think all of that force gets distributed right into one spot and it causes a lot more damage to the opponent. Whereas when you have a glove on, I think that force gets evenly distributed and decreases the amount of force that gets transferred to the opponent. That's kind of my theory. Obviously, I'm not a scientist, so I'm not exactly sure, but that's my theory on why
Yeah.
bare knuckle, like even though they can't hit as hard, I think the punches do a lot more damage.
Right, yeah, because you don't have to throw your hardest punch to still like distribute a like a not a fatal blow, but like a knockout blow, essentially.
Yeah,
Also, what do you think about like because obviously there's because of the knuckle component, there's way more cuts in BKFC, right? You think also
yeah.
that like a fist punch hurts more like hurts more than like a glove punch? I would
Oh
think so
yeah. I
personally.
yeah, I was also thinking about that too, because like when you get hit with the glove, like it feels like more of like a thud. But I'm guessing when you get hit by the knuckles, just pure knuckle, I feel like it's more of like a stabbing pain. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and if you get hit around like the eye area, like I bet the knuckle goes in the eye and it kind of blinds you
Oh
too,
yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I
What do you think
think
of
saying I think the damage that the opponent feels in bare knuckle it's probably a lot worse than in in like MMA or boxing. But yeah, go ahead.
yeah, what do you think about Conor being a part owner of BKFC? You think he's
Oh yeah.
that like I mean that definitely brings more like views, more better marketing and all that stuff. You think they're gonna have bigger fights now that there's gonna be more marketing over there? You think it's I mean they say that BKFC is the fastest growing combat sport right now.
I think for sure it plays a big factor because when you've got, I mean, I guess it depends on how much McGregor's involved because he's like a kind of like a mastermind in promoting, and I think if he's actually heavily involved, then I think he could totally change the trajectory of BKFC and obviously for the better.
Yeah, it's no secret that they're definitely growing, but I think yeah, they could grow at a faster rate if they have the marketing capacity of Connor behind them, you know?
Yeah, like if you have him promote any, I mean, he could promote like literally anything. Like it could be like a new like I don't know energy drink or pair of gloves or something. Like if he's putting that out into social media, people are gonna pay attention. So if he's promoting these fights, I think they'll probably whatever they were gonna do in the next 5 years. I think it's probably gonna be double.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, he's probably the biggest superstar in combat sports of all time, maybe up there with
Yeah.
Tyson though. Um, so last week we talked about Ryan Garcia versus Haney, and ever since their fight, there's been a lot of aftermath happening this week. Ryan's been doing a lot of podcasts, uh, and Haney, uh, for lack of a better word, there's been some excuses coming from him and his camp. What do you think about the fact that Haney's been saying that those 3 pounds that Ryan came over pretty much lost him the fight?
Uh, it's hard to say because obviously when a fighter misses weight, they do have an advantage, especially when I've heard rumors that Ryan Garcia did it on purpose, which I mean, I guess he did make that choice not to cut the extra 3 pounds. So it's hard to say. For sure, it plays a role in the fight, especially at the highest level. But I mean, when Haney was that confident going into the fight, and I think Haney even knew, like you know how they made the little side bet at the press conference, like 500K for every pound
Yeah,
over. Like he wasn't saying
yeah.
anything before the fight. He was like he wasn't worried about it or anything. So I mean, going into the fight, if he was like, "Yo, like I'm gonna be at a disadvantage," blah blah blah, then maybe. But I didn't hear that before the fight. So to say that after the fight that it made that big of a difference, I don't know. It's kind of like it's kind of discrediting his own abilities. You know what I mean?
Personally, as me as a small fighter and always like sparring people 20, 30, like a lot of pounds heavier than me, um, yeah, I don't see how. I think 3 pounds is trivial, especially when they're both gonna rehydrate to like a very similar, like it's not like Devin fought at a 3 pound disadvantage. He rehydrated to like a similar weight as Ryan walking into the ring, you know?
Yeah, facts, facts. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's a good point. Like if Haney had weighed a significant amount less than Garcia, then sure that would be a bigger difference. But I think yeah, you're right. They probably weighed about the same, so I don't think it could have played that big of a role, unless I mean unless Haney's weight cut completely drained him. But I don't think that's should be a factor since he was preparing for that weight cut in the first place. So
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Speaking about excuses to losing a fight, what do you think about some of the, including Hill? We last week we talked about Jamal Hill as well. He said that that pause and like right before he got knocked out by Pereira, that kind of took him off his game. What do you think about that claim?
yeah, man, I heard about that too. It's I'm kind of like back and forth. I mean, I saw an argument where it's like Hill's distance between Pereira before the clip before the break was like a certain distance, and then afterwards Pereira closes that gap really rapidly, and then obviously then he got knocked out. So I mean, there's credit to it. Yeah, it disrupted the flow of the fight. It caused like a kind of like a reset with whereas the ref didn't actually reset the fight. So like in boxing, you see the ref will step in and he'll actually push guys away from each other. You know what I'm talking about?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, he'll completely reset the fight. Whereas the ref in this fight, he stopped the fight, but then he never completely reset the fight. So I see what he's saying, but at the same time, it it's hard to say because that punch was just so perfect and clean. Like it wouldn't have mattered if that had landed then or later on in the fight. Like he was gonna get knocked out from that punch. But I see what he's saying.
Well, last week there was another fight we talked about. I believe it was Turner and Moicano, where he like Jalen thought he had won by KO and he walked off, and we talked about how like fighters should never just walk off, like they should finish their opponent. And I said that only suckers get sucker punch. I feel like as a fighter, you always have to be ready. Hill, he had to be ready. He gave a thumbs up to the ref, even like
For
there's no
sure.
reason to be getting caught lacking like that at all.
Yeah. Yeah, that's facts. Like I mean, yeah, he's in a fight. Like he should expect the unexpected at that point. When the fight's already started. I think he's just looking
Absolutely.
for a way to grant himself a rematch. I think that's what he's trying to do.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see that. I wouldn't be opposed to that either.
Same,
I
yeah.
wouldn't be
I
opposed
want
to
to
it.
see that fight again too.
Oh, another name. Now moving on. Another name from the UFC that's been associated with Ryan's fight before and after the Devin Haney win is Sugar Sean O'Malley. What do you think about them? I know Ryan said that he'd go to MMA, and Sugar said that he'd be willing to box him too. What do you think about a boxing match first between Sugar Sean and Ryan?
I think from a promotional perspective, I think it'd be like one of the biggest fights they could make, kind of like a super fight. It wouldn't be as big as like a Mayweather versus McGregor, but it'd be kind of like one tier lower. I think it'd be honestly bigger than that Garcia versus Haney fight, and I think they did almost 1 million pay-per-views. So I think if Sean and Ryan did, I think they could probably do at least 1.5, if not even a little more. But from a fight perspective, obviously if they did it in MMA, you know who's going to win that one. But then in boxing, I think it'll be a little bit more closer. But I still think Ryan would probably have an easy time winning that one.
You think Uncle Dana he wouldn't want that money, the boxing money?
uh, to be honest, I think Dana would veto that. I think he's like, why would I risk my superstar who's on the highest level? Like he's basically undefeated besides that one loss that was because like his leg gave out. And why would he want to risk his fighter getting like knocked out by a boxer when there's no need, especially when that would take away from his own promotion. Like he would probably look at that as like slowing down the UFC bantamweight division if he let Sean go do that, because that would take probably 6 months for him to prepare and then fight him. So I think Dana would heavily disagree with that.
Well, let's say in a perfect world where Dana White, he doesn't have a say, and Sean did go to boxing. How do you think Ryan would beat him? You said KO.
If it's over 12 rounds, probably KO. I think 12 rounds is just too long to let Ryan unleash that left hook and figure out Sean's distance and his strategy and everything like that. Like when you have a professional boxer who's done this his whole life, I think Sean would not have enough time to prepare for that. I mean, if Sean was like completely converted to boxing and had, 5 fights, then I think it would be a lot closer. But unless he did that, I don't see how Ryan doesn't finish Sean.
Yeah. So now the other way around. We know Sean is like a amazing striker in MMA. Use beautiful kicks and punches, of course. He has that deadly right hand. You think that he would entertain striking with Ryan in MMA, or you think he'd go straight for like a takedown to submission?
I think he'd stand up with him, but I think the kicks would be way too much for Ryan. I mean, like, because think about it, Sean could just teep kick, leg kick. He could literally just not even punch and just kick him and then use his footwork. And if he had to, just take him down if he got too close. So it would be a lot worse of a beatdown if they fought in MMA than if it was in boxing. What do you think?
Beatdown wise, I don't know. I think Ryan could punish Sean. And MMA is brutal, but who gets a worse beating? I think boxers get a worse beating because I mean it's obvious the statistics. A lot more boxers die than any other combat sports on a yearly basis. Just this month, I saw there was an article about a heavyweight that just died. They just take a lot more flush trauma to the head in general, you know? So like a
Yeah,
true beating that like takes years off your career. I feel like if Sean went to boxing, he would get a worse beating. But like visibly, people that don't know about fighting or anything, it would look worse if Ryan went to MMA. I get
yeah,
my point.
I think you're right. Yeah. I think you're totally right. The cumulative damage. I was thinking more of like a mismatch wise, like how it would look, like you said, to like a casual person, like the skill gap, if that makes sense.
Right, yeah.
Because I mean, like
Definitely
yeah,
MMA is definitely more noticeable in skill gaps because it's just so diverse, so many factors where like anybody could try to throw a punch and it kind of looks like they're in a fight sometimes, even though they don't know like the technicalities of trying to set up punches, the
Yeah,
timing and like just the rhythm. It it just it takes more knowledge of striking to actually see the gaps in
yeah,
technical skills from fighter to fighter.
yeah. Because I mean, like,
But
if you saw Ryan do like that little half-assed Philly shell where he's just bending over,
yeah, yeah,
it would only take one kick from Sean, like a roundhouse, to really to make it look really bad. You know
yeah,
what I mean?
for sure, yeah, yeah. So you think Ryan? I mean, we all know Ryan is kind of crazy. You think he actually would go to MMA and not do a boxing match because we know
uh,
that Dana probably wouldn't let Sean. You think he's about that talk?
I don't. I mean, I just I can't see it because he would have to do so much training, and if he's as wild as he says he is, I don't see how he could commit to a full MMA training camp.
No, I agree. I feel like as a boxer, going and learning Muay Thai and kickboxing myself, I feel like boxing was a great taught me great fundamentals of my structure and everything like that and footwork that it made my transition to like kicking easier. Um like fully MMA it would take a lot of time, maybe some years actually. Well,
Yeah.
why don't you think personally? There's been a lot of talk about this, but personally, why don't you think that boxers go over to MMA and why MMA fighters do go to boxing more often than not?
I think it's because of the oh, so it's usually only the top level boxers that are getting called out, right? So I think it has to
Right.
do with the boxer has more of like the A side, so to speak. Like they hold more of the negotiation power, obviously because they're most of them are their own promoters or they're able to make their own deals, whereas the MMA fighters they can't really negotiate for themselves like the boxers can do. I think that plays a role, and
Yeah,
I think boxers will understand like they're not like an MMA fighter can go over to boxing and not slow down their MMA career that much, but I think for a boxer to go over to MMA, they would have to completely halt their boxing career for like a solid 6 months just to learn the basics. So I think the difference in preparation is a lot harder for a boxer to go to MMA.
I can see that. If you talk to like any hardcore, strictly MMA fan, or even some MMA fighters, they'll all say that boxers don't go over to MMA because it's like way harder or whatever. They'll say that there's too many disciplines to learn. But I think what it really comes down is to money, like you were saying, not only promotional power, but money. Like a boxer is gonna get a fraction of his wage that he would get in a boxing fight going to fight MMA, even if it's for the UFC, even if it's for like the biggest money that you could get fighting MMA, that's still only a fraction. Like top tier boxers, world class boxers, they make millions and millions of dollars. Like the only MMA fighter that's made that type of money is probably Conor.
Yeah, that
What
actually
do you
leads
think
us
about
to
that?
that leads us to our next topic, like the difference in pay structure for boxing and MMA. I mean, I was just looking at these purses and like, wow, these some of these boxing purses are just huge. I mean, like the smallest
Yeah,
one on this list, this top 10 list, the smallest one is 28 million. I've never heard of
that's
a
like
UFC fighter making that money.
that's probably I don't know the numbers, but significantly like fivefold minimum of what a top tier UFC fighter makes most likely. And like if you're a specialist in boxing making like so much money, why are you like high risk, low reward? Nobody's gonna do that. If it was reversed, if like boxers didn't get paid shit and MMA fighters got paid like 10 or 5 to 10 fold more than boxers, I feel like more top tier boxers would go to MMA in that case because it's all about the money. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, I think it all comes down to the split. I think boxers they take home um, most of their pay is coming from the total revenue of the event, whereas an MMA fighter, most of their pay is coming from a purse, and then only the champions will get like maybe a couple points of the pay per view, which is that adds up, but it's like getting a couple points of a pay per view compared to a 20 to 30% cut of the entire revenue of the event. It's completely different.
Yeah. Also, boxing is more established, There's all these promoters that they've been making money for the boxing world for like decades and decades. And the UFC, which is like the biggest promotional company for MMA, they haven't been around that long, and they probably don't have a lot of promoters. Now, recently, they've been doing some work with like in Dubai, with those super
Oh
rich
yeah,
people.
yeah,
So maybe there's going to be a day that those people that are super rich will be down to promote like a top tier level boxer versus a top tier MMA and maybe in boxing too, kind of like a 1-and-1. So I'm kind of excited for those deals that both like Eddie Hearn in the zone and his people, they promote a lot with those people as well. So I wouldn't be surprised in like 2 3 years we see a big caliber boxer go to MMA for the right money,
right, right. I mean, yeah, I think um, the minimum a high level boxer would take would be probably 10 million, and even that's on the low end of a top level fighter. Like Canelo's making 30, probably 30 million minimum, 20 to 30 million just minimum. And I mean, in MMA, like if you look at these, I don't know if you can see my page, like their biggest star, Conor McGregor, who makes the most out of anyone. Like it shows here, he was disclosed. He only made 7 million. Not only, but he made 7 million versus Eddie Alvarez at UFC 205, and that that's not even enough to to get a boxer over to MMA. So yeah, I think
Yeah, and
it would take those Dubai guys, that Dubai money or Saudi money to really make it happen.
yeah, and Connor, he makes a lot of money nowadays, but it's not from fighting, it's from all of his businesses that he built up from his fighting money, and not a lot of fighters do that, but people think that, well, I don't know if people think that he makes his money from fighting predominantly, but he doesn't. He has a lot of lucrative businesses outside of fighting, like the BKFC is a great example.
Yeah, and then yeah,
Our owner.
he's got his liquor, he's got his own entertainment company, he's got quite a bit of businesses going on. So I mean that probably plays a part in why he's not even fighting that much. You know what I mean? Like he's doing movies, he's doing things that will make him a lot more money at this point.
Yeah, but props to him for wanting to come back and fight, He that shows that he does have a fighting spirit, even
Oh
though
yeah.
he's out doing other things. Which Ryan actually said that he's a boxer that's capable of like doing movies. He said he's doing music, a bunch like social media, of course, and boxing. You think that's a downfall for fighters? You think they should be like strictly focused on fighting, or you think that some fighters just have that extra capacity to do other things on the side?
Um, I would say it is a downfall because you're spending so much time away from fighting, whereas you could be spending that time improving and taking fights and like establishing your dominance in your sport. Like when you see these big names like Canelo, Anthony Joshua, like these heavy hitters that make a lot of money, and they're also like boxing greats, like they're not taking that much time off in between fights. Like Canelo's fighting 3 times a year, Joshua's fighting 2 or 3 times a year, whereas Garcia is probably fighting maybe once a year, you know? So it's like if he's going to add stuff on top, like continuing to add more to his plate, I mean, it's not going to make him like a worse fighter per se, but it's going to take away from his legacy, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I feel like even though he'll be able to compete at the top level, he might not get that extra edge that is required to win a championship belt against someone like Tank, or
Yeah.
if he goes up to 147 or whatever, like those top guys. He's still going to be in the stratosphere of that level, but not enough. I agree with you on that. And like there's been some examples like Tyrone Woodley in the UFC, especially Tyrone Woodley, Ronda Rousey, after they got super big, and they started doing these extracurriculars. Their performances, they were hindered by all this stuff.
Yeah, it's like that saying, like I don't know how the saying goes, but once you make all that money, like, and you're sleeping in like silk sheets, you're not gonna be waking up at 3 a.m. to go run. You know what I mean? I think Floyd Mayweather's
But yeah,
the only one that's really done that.
yeah, that's a Marvin Hagler saying. I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken,
Yeah,
that you can't wake up to run when you're sleeping in silk sheets. You're right. We should preview that amazing card that is also being brought to you by the Saudis again over here in the US this time though. You want to pull up that card really fast and we
is it
can go over it
The
quickly?
Crawford versus Madrimov is how you say it?
Yeah, yeah, that one. Dude, that is a crazy card. That's like some
Yeah,
UFC level type shit right there for
yeah.
boxing, you know?
I'll go ahead and read it off. So we got Israel. I don't know if I'm saying this right. Israel Madrimov versus Terrence Crawford for the WBA and interim WBO super welterweight titles. Then we got, which is all that's already like a really good fight. And then we've got Virgil Ortiz versus Tim Tszyu, another banger. David Morrell versus, I'm not even gonna say that name. We got Isaac Cruz versus Jose Venezuela for a WBA super lightweight title. We got Andy Cruz versus Antonio Moran, and we got Andy Ruiz Jr. versus Jarrell Miller, which is a really exciting heavyweight fight.
Yo, is Deontay Wilder's not fighting Zhang in that same card? Is that a separate card?
Um, I'm gonna search that one up. I saw that fight though. I think that fight, that card, that fight had another heavyweight fight on that card.
Man,
Which
that's like
looks
a UFC 3. That's a UFC 300 type card right there in boxing.
never really see boxing cards that stacked up. Like when you see this many big names, usually it's like each of these could be their own card. You know what I mean?
Back to
Okay.
the boxers' wages and boxing purses. That's why you never see so many stacked cards in boxing because the top tier boxers they get such a high percentage of the whole event purse that it like there's a certain amount of money that's reserved for an event full of cards, full of fights. And if you have like three big fights, and you have to guarantee a certain amount to like the top fighters, you'll never have enough money to cover the costs for the event and for the purses of the boxers. So that's why I'm saying these Saudis, they're throwing money away. Well, they're not throwing money away, but they're heavily investing in all these fights, and it's just benefiting the fight world.
For sure, like it makes sense too, because I saw that they're not making that much money from these fights. Like those was it like Riyadh when they did the Riyadh fight with Ngannou and Joshua. Like I saw they're not making any money. They're actually losing money, but it's because they're investing and they're playing this long term, kind of like starting up their own UFC. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that plus they're true fight fans over there, you know. They if they have the money, they really do it for the pleasure of it too,
Yeah, that's
which
true.
that's a that's a plus for us.
Yeah, that's a
We get these
baller
good
move.
fights.
But I saw the Zhang versus Deontay. That's actually on another stat card. That's better Bia versus Bivol
Oh
card.
wow. Yeah, so these Saudis are out here stacking up these boxing cards and UFC cards too whenever they go over to Dubai and whatnot.
Yeah, and then we also got Daniel Dubois versus Philippe. I'm not gonna say that last name, but yeah, I saw Anthony Joshua said he wants to fight the winner of Zhang versus Wilder, which would be freaking awesome.
Oh yeah, Dubois fighting Hrgovic, right? That Croatian guy.
Yeah,
So that's
yeah.
actually a heavyweight what is it called? A heavyweight round
Like,
robin style tournament
oh,
that
okay.
whoever wins that tournament, I believe they're going to be contending for the belt between Usyk and Tyson Fury, the winner between
That
those. So that's incredible.
yeah, that'd be sick. I mean, yeah, have the winner of that fight the Usyk versus Fury winner, and then have the Zhang versus Wilder fight Joshua, and then have those two, the winner of that fight
Dude, that's so many
for
good
all of
fights
it.
right there. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, man, the heavyweight division had all these names for like the last 10 years, and it was just a matter of like doing what they're doing now, you know what I mean, having them all fight each
Yeah,
other, because before they were all kind of just like doing their own thing, like not fighting each other for some reason, but now I guess they're they're making them happen, so it's pretty cool to see.
it's a dynamic between the Saudis bringing in all this extra money to pay the fighters, and just I don't know that Mayweather effect that everybody wanted to hold on to the belt for as long as possible, just fighting mandatories. I think that's fading away. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, especially when you see like Canelo, the biggest name in boxing, the biggest draw, like the face of boxing, like he's not afraid to go up, down, left, right, fighting just champion after champion, and taking this risk that obviously no one would ever take if they were at hit. If I like, like say like an up and coming fighter got to Canelo's level, they probably wouldn't want to take that risk. But Canelo's like, F it, like I'm here to be the best, and I think he's kind of taken that lead. Like you can lose a fight, like he lost to Bivol, and everyone's still going to tune into Canelo fight regardless. And you're seeing that with Anthony Joshua. Like he lost to Andrew Ruiz, but he took the immediate rematch, came back, knocked him out. Like he's not like there. I think we're starting to see these top level A level draws. They'll lose, but everyone's just as excited to see them fight again. So I think that's making a big difference as well.
Yeah, you see that with Ryan too. He lost to Tank, and then
Yeah.
like I don't know if those numbers that they're putting out are true for the Devin Haney Ryan Garcia fight, but those were some big numbers, and people are tuning in to watch. I mean, it's because it's exciting when you have a high caliber fighter fighting another high caliber fighter. It's just exciting, and anybody that is a fighting fan is gonna want to tune in.
Sure, for sure. And I think when they, especially now, when you stack these cards like this, when you're 3, 4, 5 fights deep and they're all good fights, you can have these fighters will take the risk because they're going to be guaranteed so much money also. So I think that plays into it as well. I mean, I think we covered almost everything. I think we got one last thing. I think Canelo versus Mungia is the last thing we wanted to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a perfect time to transition over to this card. So I'm actually not sure who's fighting in the undercard. Do you know who they're fighting? Who's fighting in the undercard of that fight for the Cinco de Mayo
Uh,
card?
oh, Mario Barrios is fighting. That's dope.
Who's he fighting?
He's fighting Fabian Maidana.
Or if he's relative to Marcos Maidana. Probably not, but
That'd be cool. And then we got Brandon Figueroa versus Jesse Magdaleno.
okay. So two ex champions and like the super. I think it's like some lightweight division.
Yeah, I guess it's featherweight.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, they're
But
both pressure fighters. Okay.
and then there's one more fight, but I'm gonna butcher their name, so I'm not gonna try. Let's say A I Montes versus Gabriel. Those are just the first names.
Okay, so that's Stanionis versus Maestri. Yeah, I've never heard of Maestri, but Stanionis is another welterweight that was kind of like Virgil Ortiz and Jaron Ennis that was supposed to be the next up and coming champion.
Oh,
So yeah, I
okay.
mean it's not a stacked card, but there's some good little fights there. The Mario Barrios fight should be decent. He pretty
Yeah, for sure.
pretty good level fighter. And the
Yeah,
Brandon Figueroa and Jesse Magdaleno, that's probably gonna be a war. But
yeah.
other than that, what are your thoughts on that Canelo versus Jaime Mungia fight? What do you think's gonna win?
I think I gotta take Canelo. Obviously, like he's probably my favorite boxer. Um, let's see what weight is this at? This is at super middle. Okay, so
Thing
yeah, so that's the
is
perfect weight for Canelo.
168.
Yeah, I think I think at that weight class, I think Canelo beats virtually everybody. Like, I mean, like he's the undisputed champion, right?
Yeah.
I think yeah. So like, I mean, maybe if Jaime had more experience, had fought some of the higher level fighters that Canelo's fought, maybe it would even out a little bit. But I think just Canelo's resume, his background, he can fight in so many different styles. I think it's going to be a little bit too much experience for Mungia.
But it's crazy. He's like 5'8" with not the biggest reach. Canelo, I'm talking about. So he's like virtually the same height as Floyd Mayweather, but like the shorter reach and probably a little slower. But he definitely has like a chin and power. It's crazy to think that he's going all the way up to super middleweight and he's undisputed there. Don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and then he's even fought. He fought at like light heavyweight against that Russian guy. What's his name? Um,
A Beevil?
him and then Sergey. He beat Sergey Kovalev.
Kovalev? Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
that was just
That's
ridiculous.
crazy.
So
Dude,
I
what
think
do you think is this? What do you think makes Canelo so successful in all of these weight classes?
it's his ability to fight in like his how do I say it? Like he's got his own style, right? He's got his high guard, his really good hooks, uppercuts, but his ability to move around the ring, switch it up when he needs to. He can fight inside, outside, against the rope, in the corner. He can pretty much fight anywhere, and he's comfortable and he's good at it. I think it's his experience, his resume. He's had to fight virtually every style, every size, going all the way up in weight classes. I think learning how to fight taller, stronger, bigger, heavier fighters. I think that alone, it molded him into being such a good fighter. Like you see him like when he fought Floyd to now, he's a completely different fighter.
Yeah, I agree. So Jaime Mungia, he just beat well, I feel like his best fight is against Devryanchenko. Devryanchenko is one of those fighters that is top tier contender, never got a title, I don't think, but he gave virtually all the champions in his weight class issues to the point that people thought he beat Triple G when Triple G was still kind of in his prime. He beat the people thought that he beat what's his name from New York. Canelo beat him.
Um.
Can't remember, but he had like spinal cancer or something like that. You know who I'm talking about?
Oh yeah, yeah. Dave. What's his name? Uh.
Here, let
Daniel
me look
Daniel
it up.
Jacobs. Daniel Jacobs.
Yeah, yeah, Danny Jacobs, exactly. Uh, but I think that's Mungia's best name on his resume. And his last fight was against Ryder, where he switched trainers from Eric Morales, who was like a Mexican boxing legend, to Freddie Roach. And because he knocked out Ryder relatively in a quickly fashion, people are hyping him up to. There were, of course, Canelo fought against Ryder and he beat him in a 12-round fight. People were saying that they're trying to do some boxing math that because Mungia beat him faster, that he has a or that's the argument to why he
Yeah,
would beat Canelo, pressure
yeah,
fighter, all that stuff.
yeah. That
So
always makes me laugh. The boxing math. It's so hard to do.
I know, yeah, yeah. Just like they did with Devin and Ryan, you know.
Yeah, yeah. I always try to do that too, and then like you see what happens. You're like, wow, they made no. My math didn't add up at all.
It's like Roger Mayweather says, rest in peace, Roger Mayweather. Nobody knows shit about boxing,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
but but you have also some fans, kind of they wanted to see Canelo fight Benavidez. What do you think about the fans that like put pressure on Canelo to fight all these top names or whatever, and then they get mad when he goes and fights someone else? You think Canelo is ducking these top fighters, or what are your thoughts on that?
I think it's tricky because I think Canelo, like, he's just in a totally different universe. Like, the way he has, because it's not just Canelo making these fights, it's promoters, it's his coaches. He has a whole team that has to determine what's the best next fight for his career. Because he's not just thinking about the next fight, he's thinking 3, 4, 5 fights down. Is my assumption. So
Hmm.
I think I think it's like we can't say anything like he's ducking or anything like that. I think it's just we as fans have no idea what goes into him making these fights because he could literally fight anybody. So when you can literally fight anybody, then why does he have to fight a certain fighter at a certain time just because everyone wants it? And if he's not, then he's ducking. You know what I mean?
Right, yeah, no, his resume is incredible, man. If you go back, like, dude, he fought Floyd when like his experience was not, or he wasn't in his prime, you know? Like, hey, Floyd himself did similar moves towards the end of his career, you know, fighting not the top opposition, but like people wanted him to fight Golovkin. He fought him 3 times, and then they were like, no, but he should fight somebody slick like Billy Joe, and he fought and beat Billy Joe. And then they were like, oh no, that's because he's British. He needs to fight like a slick American boxer. Then he beat Caleb Plant. And then they always come up with another name and he always ends up fighting them and beating them. And like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like
and now,
they
yeah,
were saying, go ahead.
no, no, you keep going.
No, I was gonna say, and then when he lost against Beeble, they tried to say that Beeble was like not even that good of a fighter, and that he got beat by a basic fighter pretty much. That's what the argument was that I heard.
Yeah,
What do you think about all that stuff?
I mean, I think people are just trying to pick and like because Canelo's the best, like he just got more critics than anybody else, obviously. But I think, um, I think Bivol was just a really tricky stylistic matchup for him, and I think that maybe now that I think about it, this Jaime Mungia fight, it actually is a good, not tune up, but preparation fight for that David Benavidez fight. You know what I mean? Like if you look at
Yeah,
Mungia, he's like a 6 foot tall combination puncher with heavy hands. Like it kind of describes David Benavidez if you think about it.
yeah. Yeah, they don't like using their length. They come forward. David is a little faster power wise. Maybe Mungia has a little more power, but I'm not sure. That David does have some power though, but it seems to be more accumulation based power. David has a chin. Jaime has a chin. Canelo has a crazy chin, bro. Like I don't know, he's
Yeah,
such a small dude. He's taking fucking punches that are heavy, like Kovalev, Golovkin in his prime. That
yeah. I
dude
don't think
has
he's
like
ever been
a
knocked down.
never, bro. I
Ridiculous.
think I seen him hurt by Koto's brother like way back in the day, but like I don't know, dude, what he's made of.
Yeah. I mean, if you watched either of those Golovkin fights, you're like, what the hell? Like Golovkin puts people out cold, and he's just eating those punches.
I know, bro, it's crazy.
And
So,
same, yeah,
what? So you said Canelo's your favorite boxer, right?
yeah, I think
Uh,
so.
everybody, what do you think is like the top five pound for pound right now? Right now, as we stand, 2024, boxing wise.
Oh man, it's tough. I would say I'd say Crawford. I'm not gonna go in order, but I'll give you 5 names that I think. I think you got to put in no order. I'd say Canelo's one of them. Crawford's one of them. Um, Inoue's one of them. Um, hmm, I think based on his resume and his momentum, he's undefeated. I think you got to throw in maybe either Usyk or Tyson Fury is in there. One of those two. We'll see. I think the winner of that fight deserves to be on that list. And then
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. I think Better Biev is he's probably in there too. Um,
Oh, you don't put any of like the hyped, like the more hyped up people, like the lightweights, you know, like Tank, Devin,
oh yeah.
Ryan, all those people, Shakur.
Tanks in there. Tanks in there. And that's my list.
Yeah.
Tank, Usyk, Fury, Canelo, Crawford, and Better Biev. I think those are my that's my list.
Yeah, no, I agree with that list. Dude, anyway is crazy. I feel like pound for pound people, some people get the luxury of being on the pound for pound list when they don't like move around weight classes, or they have benefited from having like Crawford, for example. Crawford is one of my favorite fighters. He's a fighter and he knows how to box beautifully, but he's had the luxury of benefiting from being tall, strong, and bigger.
Yeah.
While Inoue, for example, he came from like down super low and just looks incredible. Like you can see the difference between the fighters that he fights, like in size. And so like Canelo, for example, too, you can see like a distinct difference between their physiques to their opponents in the higher weight classes, and they're still able to like shine when not only they move up in weight, but they also are lacking in the other like reach and height. Um, do I get my point across?
Yeah, yeah, that totally makes sense. Being able to fight at certain disadvantages and still look spectacular.
Yeah, not just weight, because a lot of people like for example Devin, like he was huge fighting these smaller guys, essentially. I don't want
Yeah.
to say that he's a weight bully, but he takes advantage of those. Like he has a capacity of going down in weight and like taking advantage of those things, those factors. But
Yeah.
when it comes to pound for pound, I feel like that's what it means to like move up in weight, not just
Yeah.
skill, because Crawford is like super skilled and like he's probably my favorite fighter to watch. But the other guys, they don't have advantages like Crawford does, and I don't know. That's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think being able to move up and down in weight class is kind of the definition of pound for pound, even when I guess like heavyweights can't. So that's kind of why
Yeah, yeah.
you always see a heavyweight high up on the list because they can't. But I mean, yeah, when I think of pound for pound, I do think about that, and then also just like how I see the fighter. Like, do they have some natural, or maybe not natural, but they have some sort of ability? Like Crawford has the switch stance, the southpaw orthodox. Anyways, got the
Yeah.
freak power. Um, Fury has the weird being so big and tall and heavy, but he's got the footwork of like a lighter guy. Like like those unique characteristics is kind of what I also lean towards, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, I think it's an aggregate for sure. And don't get me wrong, I was like picking on Crawford a little bit. Like he should definitely be on the top five pound for pound. But I think um you just have to look at the aggregate, like his
Yeah.
skills, the skills that he has, the power, like he's moved up in weight. That's incredible. But I feel like other fighters have had to go through a little more, so they
Oh
probably
yeah, for
deserve,
sure.
even though they might not be on the same skill level as Crawford, but I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
They just have to go through more.
Yeah. I mean, if Crawford is able to move up to 154, like 160, and he still is beating these guys, then I think he that'll definitely cement his legacy as a pound per pound guy for sure.
Yeah, like I want to see Crawford going up against someone that's not only bigger weight wise, but like taller and longer. And I want to see him use his skills through that too, like another top
Yeah.
guy, like
Yeah.
Usyk, like Usyk, he looked like small
Yeah.
against
Oh my
Joshua.
God.
He looks small against
Yeah.
heavyweights. It's just incredible.
Usyk. Yeah. Now that you bring that up, Usyk is definitely on the pound for pound list. That guy's a freak.
Yeah, for
Going up
sure.
to heavyweight and beating the the top guy Anthony Joshua, and now fighting the other top guy Fury. Like he's
Yeah.
also the definition of a pound for pound guy for sure.
And I feel like Crawford, he would definitely he would want to go up. Like he wanted to go fight Canelo. Like even though he is like frame wise, he is bigger than Canelo, but Canelo has more experience. But see, that's what I'm saying. Like
Oh
that
yeah,
the Canelo's greatness, it goes like underappreciated. I feel like
for sure.
because dude, he's beating some giants,
Yeah,
and
yeah. He's
some of
always a
them are
smaller
fucking
guy.
skilled. Yeah, and some of them are skilled too. Like I know he didn't beat Beevil, but dude, Beevil is super good.
Yeah, I think that one is just a really weird style matchup because, I mean, you have Canelo who likes the high guard, is like good at like counter punching, looking at for those hooks and uppercuts. But when you got B-ball who's bouncing up and down, in and out, it's like how does Canelo, how does he close that distance? It's really hard.
Yeah. He was able to close the distance, but he was just not able to keep it up for the 12 rounds.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but you you think Canelo, like after these two fights, you think he's gonna retire? You think he's on his last fights?
I don't. I mean, he's only 33. Can you believe that?
Is he really? I mean, yeah,
I
fuck.
thought he
But
was.
he has a
I
lot
thought
of
he was
miles.
older.
Yeah, he does have a lot of miles on him though.
Yeah, it's true.
Dude,
I just
what's his
did
record
this
like?
six. He's 62 and two.
Dude, that's fucking crazy. Like,
It's yeah, it's
he has
insane.
more than double of some other top fighters, fights and his record.
Yeah, just real quick before we finish up, like for some reason I get the sense that Canelo's like one of those weird fighters that's like he just like fights because he likes to do it. So like for that reason, I think he just keeps fighting until he's like 35, 36, maybe even 37. And I think he just does it because he likes doing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. I feel that. And like lately, well, how do you think he looked against Jamal? Or maybe, I mean, he looked good. Of course, we wanted to see the finish, but Jamal was just like moving around trying to survive. You think he should have finished that fight, or no? Or you think
Oh, he didn't get the
his
knockout in that
performance
fight.
was sufficient? No, he dropped Jamal, or no, it was Jermel. I'm sorry, he dropped Jermel like in the middle of a middle round with like an overhand. But he did impress for the knockout. I think he's just being smart. He's not as young as before. He has to like be smarter how he
Oh
approaches
yeah,
his fights.
yeah, you're right. I guess he didn't get the knockout. I think I watched some of that fight, but it was so long ago now that I think about it. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think that I mean Charlo's kind of like a proven guy, and I don't know. I guess he's not a guy that's gotten knocked out a lot. So I mean, I think Canelo is not a fighter that looks for the knockout. He's kind of like more of a fighter that where the knockout will come to him. So I guess sometimes it just doesn't unfold. But should we wrap this one
Oh
up?
yeah. Yeah, I think we should, man. We hit all the topics. You want to finish it out for us?
Yeah, I mean that was a fun podcast. We covered a lot of different things, and I mean the sport's always moving, always evolving. We got bare knuckle to talk about. We got so many things to talk about. So I look forward to the next one and can't wait.
Absolutely, guys. Thank you so much for joining us for the second episode of the Pound for Pound Combat Sports Podcast. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you like our content, and can't wait to do this again. Thank you, guys.